Hi everyone. I'm sure you would have observed that sometimes demand changes very quickly in response to the price changes, while in some cases demand changes very slowly in response to the price changes. And that is the concept of responsiveness in economics, what we also know as price elasticity of demand. So today we are going to revise some key aspects of price elasticity of demand. We are going to have a look at the diagrams at how different the response of quantity demanded is to the change in prices, with some examples which will also help us understand different nature of products having different elasticities. Also, we will touch on determinants of price elasticity and impact of PED on businesses' revenues. So let's get started. We'll start with a simple definition. So what is price elasticity of demand? Remember, it has two key economic terms. We are thinking about price and we are thinking about quantity demanded in the market. And yes, it is about a particular product or a service at that point in time. So how do we define it? In simple words, price elasticity of demand is the responsiveness of change in quantity demanded due to the change in price of that particular product or a service. So you would have come across the terms inelastic demand, price sensitive consumers, low elasticity of demand, and that is what we are now going to apply to the diagrams. So we will start first by understanding inelastic demand. So inelastic demand means that the change in quantity demanded is slow in response to the change in price. So how would that look if we are trying to understand that from the market perspective? The first one that we want to look at is perfectly inelastic demand. In this case, the coefficient of PED is 0. That means no matter what is the change in the price, demand is fixed. Demand is not changing, demand is just not responsive to that change if it is happening in the price. Therefore, what examples can we think about? We can think about life-saving drugs, which are important, and therefore any change in the price will not bring any change in the quantity of the product being demanded in the market. Next one. The second one is also about inelastic demand. It is also about low sensitivity to change in price. But in this case, we can see that there is a slight change. There is a slight response in quantity being demanded. So in this case, if there is a change in the price, the change of the quantity demanded will be less than the change in price of the product. So not perfectly inelastic, but we are going to call it relatively inelastic demand. So in this case, price elasticity of demand will be less than 1. What can we think about? What products can we think about? We can think about important products. It could be a basic necessity, or it could be an example of something which is a habit forming good. So we can think of petrol, essential, and in terms of addiction or habit forming, we can think about alcohol. That means when the price changes, yes, there is a change in quantity demanded, but the change in demand is less than the change in price. And that is something you can then apply to the concepts of indirect taxes as well. So that was about inelastic demand. Now moving on to the concept of elastic demand. Elastic demand means I am talking about a set of consumers who are price sensitive. So in this case, we are going to look at two different ranges. So the first range we are going to look at is perfectly elastic demand. Other set of elasticity or sensitivity will be relatively elastic demand. So perfectly elastic demand says that there will just be one price that is going to prevail in the market. Therefore, the coefficient is infinity. No other price will be impacting the demand. As in, if the producer decides to change the price from P star to P1, the demand for the product will become 0. But why? Now, this is quite a theoretical concept, to be honest. This concept about perfectly elastic demand says that there are many sellers in the market and each seller is going to sell the product which is perfect substitute of each other. So there is no differentiation in the products And based on that many sellers supplying that product, that would lead to one price prevailing in the market. There is just no unique selling point. So any perfect substitutes will be good example of a perfectly elastic demand. What else can we think about? Now, more realistic concepts always and with in terms of elasticity of demand will be relative inelastic or relatively elastic. So if I want to think about a real price sensitive consumer, this diagram makes a lot of sense. In this case, we are talking about certain goods and services. For example, it could be private education, it could be the restaurant meals. In this case, any change in the price is going to bring about a bigger and a greater change in the quantity that is being demanded in the market. So you can see from here, when the price changes from P1 to P2, the change, the contraction of quantity demanded is greater than the change in the price. So that was all about the diagrams. Remember to clearly and completely label your diagrams anytime you're showing any changes in terms of price or in terms of quantity that is being demanded. Make sure you are clearly showing that how that leads to contraction, or in some cases you might also want to show expansion. Now, moving on to the formula, you might in the examination get some questions to calculate the